Released exclusively in Japanese arcades, Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon is a gorgeous looking arcade style beat 'em up that I suspect wasn't truly finished before release.
Fighting evil by moonlight, winning love by daylight.
From puzzle games to platformers, beat 'em ups to fighting games, and even an RPG, Sailor Moon has quite the gaming resume, with 14 games under her non-existent belt. Though despite The Pretty Guardian being one of the first major anime hits in the West, and the awesome explosion of popularity of anime in the recent years, odds are that unless you are big into the import scene, a hardcore Sailor Moon fan, or possibly French, you probably haven't heard of any of these games, let alone played any of them. But that won't stop us, because Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon is in English. Somewhat. Because that's what matters in a beat 'em up game, right? The story and the dialogue? Nah, there really isn't any regardless. As long as you've seen the first season of the original series, you should be fine. And let me point out now that this is based on the show. A lot of these enemies and scenes do not show up in the manga or in Crystal.
And with that said, Sailor Moon Arcade is a gorgeous looking title, easily the best in the Sailor Moon library. The way it captures the look and feel of the classic series is spot on, from the small details to the iconic scenes. And then it just lets us live out those classic battles.
どうして私がこんな目に遭うの？もう
Yeah, that looks about right. But it's in how those battles are fought, backed up by the visuals that give me reason to doubt that this is a complete game. Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon is a traditional beat 'em up style arcade game. Hordes of baddies are lined up, and you go from stage to beautifully detailed stage, knocking them back down. And that's honestly about it. Even taking the genre into consideration, this one is pretty bare bones. The game offers up 5 playable characters.
Sailor Venus, Sailor Mercury, Sailor Mars, Sailor Jupiter.
And of course, Sailor Moon. But despite that, and being an arcade title, the game is only 2-player co-op. Definitely a missed opportunity there. Red card, penalty, foul! Not only that, the co-op has team attack on, and that is most certainly not a good trait for a game where you're throwing enemies around the stage.
Rookie mistake. You just hate to see that one happen.
Though, to be fair, enemies can hit each other too, so there is that. But that's about it. Nothing else about this game, aside for its namesake, really helps it to stand out combat-wise. All 5 characters play and feel pretty much the same, with a basic combo, run attack, run jump attack, roundhouse that takes up health, and a super move. But it's these super moves that really got me suspicious about the game's development. So the specials in this game work a lot like they do in Golden Axe. As you progress, enemies will drop crystals. The more you pick up, the stronger your screen clearing special will be. Though, let me put this out there right now. These crystals, they don't drop that often, especially compared to Golden Axe. No little gnomes to smack around here, so saving up will take way too long. Assuming, of course, you really want to see what each of the scouts' strongest special is.
我が守護木星嵐を起こせ雲を呼べ雷を降らせよスープリームサンダー
Oh wow! Haven't seen that before. So glad I spent so much time saving up those crystals.
Seriously though, the strongest attack in the game is just each of the girls' Season 1 signature move. Which, I get. They aren't going to be revealing any attacks from beyond that. But the specials for the moves using 1, 2, 3, or 4 crystals is... filler at best. Oh no, don't equip barrettes at me. Oh, however will I survive? Now, screen clearing moves are nothing new in these kind of games. Just look at Streets of Rage 1. But it's just not a very fun way to use the girls' signature attacks. But then I found this. Let the Spammer D conspiracy theory commence. Ripped sprite sheets for the game kinda confirmed that at least at some point in the game's development, there were plans to let the player really use the signature moves. But clearly, along the way, it got cut. And it kinda feels like the Scout Specials aren't the only things that got the axe. Despite having only a few levels, the game doesn't have much in terms of variety. While there are a few different looking foes, they're all pretty similar. Like no difference in weight classes or how they enter or things like that. Plus, despite being only about an hour long, the game reuses bosses for almost half of the levels. But it's in how these last few bosses are utilized that's really telling. Because despite how great these characters look, they barely do anything beyond float around or teleport spam. Plus, a lot of the early villains got little cutscenes or character introductions or stuff like that, where the final bosses, the most important ones in the series, kind of just are there. With such talented sprite artists, I find it difficult to believe they couldn't animate a few extra moves for these iconic villains to give these fights a bit more flavor, because the game really needed something to help bring out that fun factor. Because unlike similar games of the genre, Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon is really lacking. There are no environmental hazards to interact with, no set pieces, no mini games. Really, there's nothing to help break up the monotony that comes with the territory. There isn't even weapons to pick up. And be honest here, when you see this enemy's head laying on the ground, tell me you don't want to pick it up and beat them with it. Remember kids, violence is never the answer. Most problems can be solved by just talking about your feelings first. And if you ever find yourself feeling threatened, get out of there as fast as you can and find an adult or teacher. Spammer D says, and yes, I am well aware that most of these scouts don't really use weapons. But still, the combat needed some sprucing up, because it is hard to keep from growing bored. Especially with this music. The soundtrack in this game definitely has that arcade vibe, especially the level complete tune. But it still absolutely invokes that classic Sailor Moon feel. But that being said, I don't think most of the tracks really work that well for an action game that is 100% fighting 100% of the time. Most of the tracks are very slow and lack energy, which is especially prevalent in the first level. It really makes the game get stale quick. Everyone I have ever played it with wanted to quit after the second level, and I completely understand why. The game's biggest, glaring issue is that it's boring. And I can say that as someone who is biased for both Sailor Moon and beat 'em up games. Look, I love them both, but I just can't deny the facts. Sure, this game looks deceptively amazing, and there is definitely appeal to getting to play as some of your favorite characters and punishing the baddies in the name of the moon. But that appeal is really only skin deep, and it fades away pretty fast. The music just doesn't keep pace with the action. The combat is very lacking in diversity, strategy, and just gets stale real quick. And as I said at the start, I don't think this game was ever properly finished before being rushed out to the arcades. And that ultimately hurt it. Being that the game never saw a proper home console release, and it probably never will, the only way to play it is to emulate. If you're a hardcore Sailor Moon fan, it might be worth checking out, but set your expectations accordingly. For everyone else, give it a pass.